Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
You in the stealth mode today?
No, I'm just running late.
Okay. No, it's not that bad. Couple months.
Couple minutes, yeah.
So I thought we were in Mason this week. Obviously, I've got the calendar schedule screwed up.
Um, we're not scheduled for Mason again till, well, I'm thinking June. Or
Okay.
not June, July. July will be our, but I can't book the room yet. They won't let they won't let anybody book the room. We're too
Oh, okay.
far we're too far
Too
ahead.
far in advance.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Steve.
Greetings.
Oh,
Sorry.
your microphone is on your head. There you go.
There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Looks like you and I have the same headset.
Uh, this is a
Little
logic.
Logitech with that.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. With a little gizmo here to adjust the volume. Yeah.
And mute.
Mine's mine's a generic Logitech with the mute.
Okay.
It's
Well,
not a it's not a Logitech at all.
I have had pretty good experience with various Logitech. Pretty much all of the keyboards that I use and the mice I use and headphones I use and so forth are all Logitech.
Yeah. They make good stuff. But- So my dad finally picked up a new keyboard. And
Ah,
well,
okay.
he called me up late last night. I can't get this keyboard to work. I'm like, okay. He had the dongle plugged into the HDMI port.
How? And how? How hard do you have to press for that?
I don't know, but that's where it was when I got there. I'm like, okay. He ended up buying a Logitech keyboard because the guy at he did not go to Micro Center to get the one that I told him to get, but they were at Best Buy, and the guy convinced him that this Logitech keyboard was better than a mechanical keyboard.
Mm,
And I said, "It's what would you pay for it?" Oh, it was like a $15 keyboard. It's not better than a mechanical keyboard. You're going to hate this keyboard after a little while, and you're not going to be able to take it back. But
Well, what had happened to his old keyboard?
well, like most cheap keyboards that you get with these computers and whatever, the letters faded off over time.
Yeah.
And even though he's typed most of his life, he doesn't really he has to look at the keyboard to see where the letters are.
So he's not a touch typist.
He's not
Okay.
really a touch typer.
me either.
And it got to the point where the letters being faded off had started to really bother him. So he needed a new keyboard. And that was one reason why I suggested mechanical keyboard because the keycaps are usually better. And he was looking at them and he agreed. He was like, "Yeah, this seems like it's a better keyboard." And then the guy at Best Buy convinced him that the $15 keyboard would be just fine. I'm like,
Well, I have to give kudos to the salesman at Best Buy. I mean, he managed to make the sale.
thing is if I mean, Dad kind of knew what he was looking for, and the salesman could have made a lot more. I mean, spending six. We can't hear you.
Hmm?
Sorry. I suspect the markup on a $15 Logitech is higher than the markup on a decent Keychron.
Maybe, but
Hmm.
he don't they make 15% or something of the sale?
Not a flat percentage.
Mm.
It's a percentage on the markup.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I got these neat little key switches. They're very rounded, very smooth, and they've got nice solid lettering. And they're double shots. If your dad gets tired of the Logitech, I got good keycaps for him.
yeah. I
This was like a $14 set of keycaps.
well, okay. That's not hateful. I I told I he came in and played with my with you know my mechanical keyboard and he was like, I really like this, you know. So he kind of knew what he was looking for, and
And the
I just
salesman led him astray.
I was just like, okay, you know, you know. He said he would probably just keep it until it fades, all the letters fade off again. I'm like, and maybe faster than you think because the $14 keyboards uh aren't great for that. But
Well, I have a client, longtime client who I guess you could call her a client who it must be something in her hand lotion or whatever, but she literally erases
hmm
the whatever the they put the letters on with.
yeah,
Fortunately, she's a touch typist, so it doesn't bother her at all. But every time I have to take a look at her desktop, it's like, what happened to
Stop
all
doing that.
but
but
I am convinced, without offending her, that it must be something in the chemistry of her hand lotion or something or another. But
it, it's my I've got very oily fingers, and that oils will just wear that stuff off too. So
well, the
you're
other thing is, I have to say, she's not only a touch typist, she's a relatively fast touch typist. So she probably touches those keys 10 times more than the average person would. So it's, but
yeah.
doesn't bother her because she's a touch typist, and man.
Well, it it never really bothered me either, but I kind of like the idea of the keys being on the keyboard. So,
I'll tell you what I like. I like the lighted keyboards
hmm
Yes.
because I like to, relatively speaking, sit in the dark and type it, and you get, yeah, right, like that.
Well,
Yeah.
see,
What kind's that,
that's
Mike?
Let's say,
What brand is that?
AZO, AZIO. I've had it for probably 10 years. And the keys, the letters are molded in so that when you look at it, you can actually see the edges of it.
Yeah.
And I know that Steve had a bunch of keys, and Leroy did, that had a different tactile sense. I like the tactile sense on these also. Now, I guess it'd be like everybody else. I've got a whole slew full of other keyboards and wireless remote and such. This is the one I like for this machine. The other ones, I don't do any work in front of them. They are there to do internet searches and read my email, and they're hooked up to a very large screen TV that's across the room from where I am. So I can see it, but it's not like this. The keyboards are on my laptop, and they're okay, but just barely.
Okay.
the machine over here on my left. I don't even have a keyboard hooked up to it. I just use the on-screen keyboard, but I don't use that machine. That machine um, streaming the scanner. So I really don't touch that machine unless I have to do an update or something.
Well, like Art was talking about going in and working on the machine in the dark. I am the type of person that if I wake up in the middle of the night, I will get up rather than lay in bed and think about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll come in and work on the machine in the dark, and having an illuminated keyboard keeps the spelling English.
Yeah. Right.
Well, see, I think that uh my dad this started because my dad bought the wrong keyboard. And I think my dad would benefit from having a backlit keyboard. And his little office space, even in the daytime, it's kind of dark. So I think he really would have liked the keyboard that I recommended to him, and it really wasn't all that more expensive than the one that he bought. The one that Best Buy convinced him was a better keyboard, which I'm sitting there going, nope, nope. But he said, I'll just use it until the keys fade off, and I'm like, okay. And then I will come and get you, and you can go with me, and we'll get the right keyboard.
Battle the salesmen together.
Yeah.
Well,
Gee.
I wouldn't have gone to Best Buy in the first place. I would have gone down to Micro Center, but you know.
Yeah, I picked up a combination gaming keyboard and gaming mouse. And if you have ADD, and you want everything flashing in front of you, uh, I've got a keyboard for you. You can turn all that off, but the default is that it is
Blinky.
just a riot of illumination at random every place. No, it's like, how can I turn this on?
This used to be Patty's mouse.
Hmm.
It was a $6 Micro Center mouse, and um, she liked it for a while, and then all of a sudden she was like, "I want your mouse." Okay, so I traded her. So it
So
doesn't.
is that lit around the edge?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
it's fading too. It changes from. It's basically a rainbow of
Oh, so
colors.
it fades in and fades out then?
Yeah,
Hmm, cute.
it's slowly turning purple. It went from blue to purple. Now it's kind of turning green. But it matches my keyboard, which does the same thing.
Oh,
Got the
okay.
got the sweeping colors. Ow.
Marla's
Just
favorite pattern on that one is, I think it's like the seventh or eighth pattern it does, where when you hit a key, a ring of color expands out from it.
yeah. Yeah, this one's got all kinds of different patterns to it, but and I've got it set uh pretty dimly, but I like just the fading of colors.
Now, what brand's that, Leroy?
That one's the Keychron.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I don't remember.
C3,
C3, 3C, yeah, something like that.
I
C3
think
RGB.
And then we've got this thing that we've all seen, the little macro keyboard, but it really doesn't have many patterns. It just changes colors.
you have to be a braille typist to use that.
Yeah, this is my copy, paste, and print screen button.
Ah, well, the mouse I just held up, I think went with the keyboard that I was describing, and I don't really need an illuminated scroll wheel.
So I bought a set of pro speaker gaming speakers. These things were the worst pieces of garbage I had ever seen. But I figured the reason that they are gaming speakers is because they had RGB lights behind the speakers, and
Ooh,
I'm like, stick RGB lights behind anything and it turns into a gaming device. And they could charge premium money for it.
This is
now
my favorite mouse.
Yeah.
Oh, you like trackballs, huh?
Trackball with a scroll wheel.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
thing's
okay.
handy.
I had one of those about 25 years ago, and I really did like it. But it didn't belong to me. It belonged to Middletown Works, so I had to leave it.
Yeah.
Initially, I didn't like them either, but I gave it a week and I still use a mouse whenever I have to go to somebody else's desk. But for me, that thing is just so nice. And if you set acceleration on it, if you need to do real fine adjustments, like if you're working in CAD stuff and you need to move 1 pixel, it's easy to do. And clicking a button doesn't move the pointer.
Hmm.
That's handy.
I
And
really go
my
ahead.
weirdest keyboard.
I like that keyboard.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn to love it. Oh no.
Is that wireless?
Um, yes, it is, but not very good because it's an aluminum frame, and so it's wireless inside of a cage.
Faraday cage, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it does work, but no, it's USB-C
Ah,
to just use it. But it's very small, and I was thinking about using it on a little tiny retro computer looking thing with a i5 in it and a 8-inch screen.
Raspberry Pi or something.
Well, an old style terminal.
Yeah. That
You were talking about the resolution on that one that you had. This particular uh, mouse
Mhm.
has a small button. Let me turn that over. You can read it. I believe that says DPI,
Yep.
mhm.
where you can click on it and change the dots per inch of the resolution on the
interesting.
fly. So if you have something that you are trying to fine tune, generally I have a snap to grid turned on when I'm doing CAD work, so I don't have to be really close. But there are times that I like to do pixel by pixel, and it is nice to crank that up to the finest resolution.
This mouse that I've got here has one of those buttons, but it doesn't seem to actually do anything. Um, but I have three trackballs, and all three of them have developed some sort of problem over the years, and I used to really love them, but once they start developing weird quirks, they're
Well, you have to
quirky.
take them apart and clean the balls.
I did. I've done all kinds of stuff to them. That was one reason why I went back to the mouse because I was using a trackball for a long time and really liked it, but it went back to the mouse and it's all right. Except except its little DPI button doesn't actually DPI. It it does
Yeah,
control the lights.
I have plenty of spare parts if you need any.
Uh I
So on these Kensingtons, I've got at least 5 of them and probably 6. And when one gets weird, I buy another one and then I buy the parts to fix the one that got weird. And so I've got 5 of them that work really well. You can replace the switches. Um, the chip never fails. The camera in it never fails. The
yeah.
only issue I've ever had is the scroll wheel gets weird, and that needs more than just cleaning. But now I've gotten this little guy. This is a Ploopy. It's from a company in Canada. So right now they're really at a good price. Um, it's entirely 3D printed except for the ball. The ball is a 45 millimeter um, pool ball. Where they use 45 millimeter pool balls, I don't know. But even the bearings in it are just regular. I think they're 8 millimeter by 4 millimeter by 2 millimeter ball bearings. They're cheap. I can repair everything in this for pretty little. Yeah.
Well, you have more patience than me because when these mice start getting glitchy and the cursor is jumping across the screen, it's like, um, yeah, I clean it, and it works for about 12 minutes, and then it does it again. It's like, no, it's out of here. I have no tolerance for it. But I'm too attached to them to throw them out either. That's there's a drawer full of them.
Yeah, I think we're all right there because I opened a box. I was trying to clean out the cupboard again. I opened a box and there's like 6 mice that I know all had problems because why else would they be in a box?
I don't know. I don't hold on to the broken ones. On the other hand, I've got probably 10 or 12 unopened keyboards in factory boxes and factory mice. And the Dell keyboards and Dell mice and these are all Dell, seem to be pretty darn decent.
Yeah.
I'm real happy with those. If I have to use one, I will. For the most part, they're for grandkids.
Yeah.
They
Well,
hit each other with it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was reminded of the woman who was helping clean out her grandmother's estate. And as they were going through looking at all of the boxes, they came across a sack that was labeled pieces of string too short to save.
pieces of string too short to save. And we saved them.
Yes.
Okay, to be fair, I have that box for jumper wires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was cleaning out, some of my parts bins and I must have made this cable, but there's a cable that I have in there that's a dual. It's got a single Grove connector on one side and then two Grove connectors on the other. And I'm like, oh, that's cool and handy. They're selling them now. They weren't selling them, so I must have made it because I had just thought about ordering a set of them. I'm like, oh, where did this come from since they just now started selling these things? So I got a bunch of stuff that I have no idea what I've got. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't have some string that's too short to save.
Well, Leroy has seen my garage. I'm certain I have several boxes of string too short to save, and they're not even on the same place.
Yeah. Wow. That's what I was doing right before I started the meeting. That's why I was a couple minutes late. I was cleaning out a box and now I looked up and it's 5 o'clock. I'm like, oh, got, gotta put my junk away. Um, you were asking, Art. So in May we are at midpoint. In June we are at midpoint.
So when's the next time we're in Mason?
That would be, well, if I can get the room, it would be July 10th.
So you're not scheduled for Mason at all then?
No.
Okay.
No, I at the weirdest thing, I check both Westchester and Mason, and we kind of like Westchester, even if it's a little harder to deal with sometimes. But the weird thing was the next 2 months, Westchester was open, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'll take that. I'll take that. But
Well, Westchester is a nice facility. I mean, it is very nice.
yeah.
Well maintained.
Well,
It now has acceptable internet. For a long time, it was two
and
strings in a can, but
Westchester or Mason, the last meeting, that we were at Mason. Everything seemed like it was working great. The internet was nice and fast. So
Yeah, but you said it was relatively vacant.
yeah,
Uh, so that sounds like a capacity problem.
yeah, yeah. I did find out last time, it's still provided by Ohio Library Network or whatever that is, OLPN or whatever, whoever provides the internet down at Westchester also. It's the Ohio Network, Ohio Library Network. Um, so the internet should be fast. It's just whatever reason, for whatever reason, the first time we tried, it wasn't. So, but I'm kind of treating Mason as a backup at this point. Mason's nice. I like the room. It's a big room, but it's also a smaller library, and the library system is a library system of one. They don't have all the same resources and everything. So, but that's kind of my thought process is we'll treat it as a backup. So, and I honestly thought that they were letting people schedule a couple of months ahead of time, but I went in and tried to schedule a room, and I couldn't do it. So I don't know what the deal is there. So, but I've been playing with robots again. I got my order finally showed up from M5, the one that last week came to Franklin, then went back to Cincinnati, spent a week in Cincinnati, finally showed up a couple of days ago. So
So is that USPS or okay?
it went from Chicago, where I assume the plane landed and they offloaded the plane, to Indianapolis, from Indianapolis to Cincinnati, spent a day in Cincinnati. Now, mind you, from the time that it cleared customs to Cincinnati was only like a day. It didn't take any time at all. So it had traveled maybe 4 days from the time it left China to the time that it showed up at the airport was maybe 4 days and then another day, so maybe 5 days to get to Cincinnati. Cincinnati processed it really quick, got it up to Franklin the very next day. So now we're at a 6 day period of time. And I'm like, cool, this is probably the fastest package I've ever gotten. And Franklin dropped the ball, sent it back to Cincinnati. At that point, I don't know what happened. I guess Cincinnati didn't know what to do with it, and they sat on it for a week. It bounced between like four different Cincinnati depots before it finally went back to Franklin, and Franklin finally brought it to me. It took well, it took a good week, maybe week and a half for it to come out of Cincinnati the second time. And I'm like, you guys did so good the first time around. What's going on?
I'm surprised it doesn't go through Dayton.
For whatever reason, I would say probably 99% of my mail goes through Cincinnati, through the
Really?
Cincinnati hub. Yeah. Yeah.
Almost all of Dayton's mail comes out of Cincinnati.
Hmm.
We've got a huge terminal down here.
Yeah. Well, there's two or three terminals down there, really. If you look at the postal codes that are on the tracking, you'll get different postal codes, and it's different terminals that it hits down there. And it's kind of an interesting setup, but for whatever reason, the first leg of of this package's journey was very, very fast, and then it just became extremely slow. And I was actually getting to the point of questioning whether or not I was going to get the package at all. It's like it's stuck in Cincinnati. Why? Why is it in Cincinnati?
Well, I'm not certain this is the exact parallel, but I was thinking to myself, whatever you bought, all of the postal workers in Cincinnati had a chance to try it out and review it before it came to you.
Oh, oh, that's very convenient.
And I was reminded of something that Julie did. I had just started dating her. And she says, "Come with me. I need to drop off this roll of film and have it processed." Well, I'm along for the ride, and we go in, and she's bending over, filling out the paperwork. The guy's behind the counter waiting to get the paperwork and the film. And she says, "Do you do nudie photos?" And the guy says, "What?" And she says, "Sexually explicit photos. We just got out of bed to bring this film in." And I'm thinking, what the hell? And we're walking out the door, and she says, "I don't know why they say an hour and a half. I always get mine in 15 minutes. We come back and pick up the photographs. We're walking out. So she says, "Want to see the pictures from Grandma's Thanksgiving?" It's like, I need to pay attention when I'm around this woman.
Uh, that's good. So
So the reason you didn't get your toy was too many people were playing with it.
that's probably true. It, M5, they usually like send their stuff in a box, which is cool. Um, it's usually very well packaged. I've had one package come that was in a little baggy thing, and a bunch of the stuff got damaged, and it was heartbreaking because it actually took forever for that stuff to get here. But they had started putting seals on their boxes that said, you know, if the seal has been opened or whatever, do not accept the package. And I'm like, okay. So they apparently have had somebody opening their packages somewhere along the line, and this package wasn't open or anything. Everything was still good, so I doubt people were playing with it, even though that seems likely. But I don't know. You know, it was I ordered one more thing from China last night. I'm hoping it gets here before the March 3rd cutoff.
Oh, is that the current cutoff?
That's the current cutoff, and uh, I do not want to pay any kind of tariff on this thing because it's going to cost a fortune um, for the tariff. So I'm hoping it gets here relatively quickly. But when 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 this when this stuff didn't show up, I was like, oh man, they're just holding it in Cincinnati until the tariffs kick in, and then they'll send it to me and I'll have to pay more.
Well, now, how do the tariffs work? Is it based on the date at which the thing is shipped from China?
Have no
or it
idea.
arrives in the US or whatever.
Have no idea.
I think it's when it clears customs.
Yeah, it can't be when it gets delivered to you. It's got to be dealt with before that.
Yeah.
And the tariff, in theory, whatever, is on China. So it should be at the time of sale.
It should be at
Well,
the time of sale.
yeah, I think you're misinterpreting that though. The tariff is for goods from China, not on China itself. So as you have a package arriving or goods arriving from China, when they pass through customs, that's when the tariff is executed.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
there's a cutoff date here soon for the deal where it's under $800 where there's no tariff. And then there's another cutoff date of March 3rd, I believe, that really imposes like very high tariffs. So
Well, I know Ray said it was going to wreck his business.
yeah, it's well, M5 has put a thing on their website that says they're closing the store tomorrow to US sales. So
That means closing it forever or just
until they work out the tariffs, apparently, see how they could do it to save their customers from paying crazy high tariffs. Because I spent $60 at on the stuff that I bought, and if you read the thing, it looks like if I'm hit with the tariffs, it's going to be around $150.
wow.
So that's on a $60 item. If I read that right.
I can share the M5 stack announce I have in my screen.
Okay,
Okay.
hang on. Should be able to.
You see?
Yep, there it is.
Okay. This is in AliExpress, the M5 store, M5 stack store.
See where it says 75 cents per postal item. So if I bought two things, that's $150, right?
Mhm.
That's the way I would interpret it.
That's getting cut off on my screen. I'm not seeing the whole screen. Let me see if I can get rid of your.
I can reduce.
Oh,
You
okay.
see
Thank you.
now?
That does it.
A 104% tariff.
Yeah, but it goes up again though. And then effective June 1st, items below 800 would be subject to a flat tariff of 150 per item. Oh my goodness, that's insane.
Mhm.
So if you bought a flash drive, it's 75 cents, and that's all you bought, it would cost you $150.75.
After June 1st, apparently.
And $75 shipping.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think I know Vicente bought some stuff last night too, but I think we're done buying stuff from China for a while.
So where are you going to buy it from? There aren't any other vendors.
Exactly,
No,
Art. That
I
was my
told
question.
I told Leroy that we have a lot of stuff to work on, so we don't need to buy anything really, but we just enjoy to buy stuff. But We
Yeah,
have
well, that's
plenty
it.
of,
We enjoy getting new stuff.
yeah.
I have I have 4 boxes
Mhm.
full of microcontrollers. I do not need anything new.
Leroy,
Y-
you got to start selling those.
You know, I bet I bet I'm sitting on a million bucks worth of microcontrollers, especially after the tariffs hit.
Yeah,
I didn't sell my
maybe,
Raspberry Pis. I didn't get rich off my Raspberry Pis, and I missed that opportunity. Maybe I've got another opportunity coming up.
yeah,
We used to have a game when I worked at the general offices where you got so many points if you had to rent a car, or so many points if you had to take an aircraft to where you're going or change flights. And if the destination was in a different time zone, and if the people in the community that you were going to visit did not speak English, you had points for that. And there was a special category if you had to go to Kentucky. So I I don't know, Leroy. If you sell stuff across the river, are you going to have to impose an internal tariff?
yeah, maybe.
I told so it's funny. I've been printing like, weird little things for my grandkids, little Candyland man and stuff. They've been buying the filament for me to print. Uh, I printed dragons for one of the grandkids' birthdays and all that. And I've been getting 4 rolls of filament. They get 4 different colors, usually 10 or 15 items per color. So I still come out ahead, but I told the one, I said, you're going to have to buy 5 rolls of filament for the Leroy tariff. That's the new tariff. And apparently the tariffs are going to hit the 3D printing, the filament as well. So
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Is it
told
made in China?
yeah, almost everything's made in China. I told both girls, I said, you really need to probably go down to Micro Center right now and buy the stuff while you still can. And even though you don't need, their birthdays are like still 3 months, 4 months away. Even though we don't need, I'll just put it up and we'll have the filament for when we need it, and hopefully it's cheaper to do it that way.
So what's the deal? Can you resell something you've already paid the tariff on? And in other words, is it one-time tariff or is it every time a product
When
I
you
think,
changes?
cross customs. So
yeah,
Maybe
I
if
think
you
that,
were
I think once
to,
it clears customs, you're fine.
yeah, if you were to sell it to Canada, then it would pass customs there, and someone in Canada is going to pick up the cost of the reciprocal tariff or whatever.
Anybody who has read history realizes that the cause of the initial cause of the collapse in 1929 and was the isolationism caused by tariffs. And so we're basically going down the same road again.
yeah.
Well,
So
do you recall the name of that tariff?
yeah, uh, Holly Moot or Moot Holly or
Moot Holly.
yeah, and I'll tell you how I remember it. It is what Ferris Bueller gets thrown out of class for an
His day off.
They are.
day, yeah, Bueller's Day Off or whatever it is. And I just thought, how, but that's my mnemonic for it. It's just, what happened to Leroy?
Oh, now I broke it.
Well, fix it.
Okay. I thought I fixed it, but I'm broken. Yeah, I broke it. There it is. Yeah, I don't really know if these tariffs are going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, honestly,
Well, it doesn't
Mhm.
save us any money.
it doesn't save me anything right now.
As a matter of fact, it is basically an extra tax.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Well,
idea of
Um,
manufacturing in the United States is not a bad goal, but
but
I
you
know
need
what it
an
takes.
an ecosystem of
Yes,
that is very complex to move everything here, you know, and we don't have the skills to do that. We don't have the people to work on those factories.
I know what it takes to make a new steel facility because AK Steel bought and purchased and constructed an entirely new facility from the ground up. And just the engineering and the planning to start with a blank piece of paper and see just what was available. For example, what are your choices for overhead cranes? How do you decide that? And the problems that you run into when you're doing something like that, we specified no lead paint. And after the cranes came in, I visited the facility and looked up and said, they're all painted lead paint. And they said, well, how can you tell? I said, look at the color. You can visually see the difference between the old Caterpillar yellow and the new Caterpillar mustard color. Well, that was as evident as there was in the crane thing. You can't take them down and send them back. So that means from now until forever, anybody that does work on a crane has to have a lead abatement occur before they can go weld and burn on it. So if you're talking about bringing manufacturing back, it's not a simple matter of going down to the dollar store and picking up a couple of containers. It's not as simple as printing out something on the 3D printer. It's significant.
I was listening to one of Adi Lada's Lady Ada from Ada Fruit. She was talking about how there is small manufacturing here for microcontrollers, but it's very, very small. Nobody is prepared for any significant scale, but you still can only get the screens from China because China is the only place that has the equipment to manufacture those screens. So your laptops, your cell phones, microcontrollers that have screens, whatever uses a TFT or an LCD, a
Yeah,
TV,
but
what?
you
Well,
have dozens
there's a
of materials.
bunch of the screens, the AMLCD, which are produced in Japan. And the reason I know that is that I used to sell them lasers because they did this business depositing highly hydrogenated amorphous silicon and then converting it using the laser. And
Well, if if you believe what she's saying, a lot of that manufacturing that was even over other countries has moved to China now.
yes,
It's all done in China. And you're just not going to gear up a production plant in the States quickly to manufacture screens. It's not something that can't be done, but it's like maybe a 7 or 8 year process to do it.
well, it's also costly.
It's expensive, yeah. So she was more concerned about what the component costs would cost because you still gotta get the components from somewhere, and components really aren't made here anymore. They're made overseas somewhere, and yeah, it's a complicated problem that I I I kind of like, I'm thinking I like the end goal, but God, it's going to take forever to make that end goal a reality.
Yeah.
And people will lose the job before have a new one, you know.
Yeah.
You will lose a lot of jobs now to have new jobs in 5 years.
Yeah.
This has no sense.
As long as you don't have to eat for the next 5 years,
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Well,
I saw this firsthand when I worked in the steel industry. The
yeah.
demand for steel worldwide is cyclical. It goes up and it goes down. And the skills involved in manufacturing steel, you would not think are that precious or valuable, but they're kind of ethereal. It's an art as much as it is a science.
Well, yeah,
And
doesn't it depend on the type of steel you're making and all that
well,
as well?
grain-oriented electrical steel is what I was going to talk about. Grain-oriented electrical steel was being produced at the Butler Works. And when the worldwide demand for that went down, the steel from China and Japan was being sold off of the boat cheaper than it could be manufactured in the United States. As a capitalist country, we don't have the teamwork that some of these countries have, like China, with the government. You're not competing against a Chinese steel company, you're competing against the entirety of the country and all of the economics and the centralized planning. So they operated at 100%. They kept those ethereal skills. Anytime they had an opportunity to modernize and upgrade a facility, they did. And they sold the steel at a loss. Where in the United States, if employees are laid off, they'd get unemployment or they'd get some benefits or whatever. That process, they exported their unemployment. So all of that money was invested in the equipment and they subsidized the cost of the product so that it could be sold in the United States. And we being a capitalist society, if people can say, oh, gosh, I can get grain-oriented electrical steel for half the price if it originates in China versus if it's coming from Butler, Pennsylvania, you know what's going to happen. It's going to go to the lowest bidder. And then when the demand goes back up, they made 10 times as much money in the peak demand times as they lost in the low demand times. So it was a ratcheting type operation where every time that happened and the demand went down, a facility in the United States went out of business. And so when the demand ratcheted back up, the only people that could fulfill it were in China or Japan. And the next ratchet cycle, another company would go out of business. And it just was a suffocating exercise. AK Steel, now owned by Cleveland Cliffs, came dangerously close to going out of business entirely a number of times when those cycles were low.
Yeah.
I saw that happen, but from the standpoint of us as 5 people on the internet talking about this, how the hell are we going to change that? You know, it can't happen.
Well, the dad talks about how the Japanese steel mills were modernized, especially after the war, and the American steel mills were still using, old technology from before the war. And you can't compete between a modern facility and a non-modernized facility.
Yeah. Well, it's complicated because during the 50s, United Steelworkers and a number of other, and I'm not being negative here, I'm just expressing the fact that every 5 years they would get 16 weeks of vacation. And us Americans took that.
Yeah.
The money did not go back into reinvesting in the most modern equipment. And so there was no long-term sacrifice to look at a future 25 years down the road. I'm sorry, we just didn't do it.
Yeah. And the Japanese would continue to improve and modernize.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It, like you said, it's complicated. The end goal seems good, but the getting to that goal, it seems like it's going to be very painful for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and this is just my political viewpoint. I don't think the current administration has the mental capacity to do 25 years worth of strategic planning.
Well, I'm not sure anybody does.
No, China does. China did it. They create the solar panels manufacturing. They create like 60 factories and make them compete in technology until only 4 of them survive. And now they have the 4 biggest and better solar panel manufacturing in the world. They create the ecosystem to do that, and no one can compete with their technology to manufacture solar panels, for example. The same thing they did with batteries. They have very good technology in batteries. They are very close to us in AI. They are moving fast in electrical vehicles. They are far away from us in self-driving cars in China. Robots, they are working in a lot of stuff, They were flexing muscles to do that a lot of years.
And they did that by in the 60s letting 20 million people starve.
We need to do a lot of work to reach this level of complexity. You can make steel maybe with 100 of procedures and machines, but to make an iPhone, you need hundreds of thousands of procedures and activities to make all converge in a phone. We don't have all these supply chains to do that. China hasn't. So there is a huge problem. And when if we want to force to do it, our cost will be four times the cost to do it in China. You know, who will pay the price of this smartphone made here? Will be hard to sell. So there is a guy that is suggesting that we must move factories from China, making associations with them. You know, create associations. Just a second. Hello.
Hello.
Sí.
Voy a parar el chipotle. ¿Quieres algo? Voy
Ah,
a parar y llevarlo a la casa.
un burrito,
¿Ok?
chicken, whatever.
I muted him.
Thank you.
Sorry.
My brother was in naval aviation for 23 years. And he said that when they were doing submarine patrols off the coast of China in the late 60s, there were rafts of bodies that had floated down the river and out to sea. So this isn't just a theoretical from the standpoint of the number of people that they sacrificed.
Yeah. Well,
Well, if you're one of the dead people, it's not theoretical.
No.
So, at any rate, on that happy thought,
let's talk about something fun. Robots.
Well, it's a tough world.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. And it's I think it's going to get tougher before it gets easier. But
well, it's interesting to me that a lot of this saber rattling relative to tariffs and so forth and so on keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed and so forth and so on. Initially, it was going to be immediately, and now, a lot of the tariffs have been pushed back, not canceled, just it's not going to happen until March 1st or April 1st or May 1st or whatever. So
yeah. I don't know. I just know that for the immediate future, I am probably not buying anything else. So,
oh gee.
You're muted, Vicente.
You gotta unmute him. You muted him.
I could ask him
Hello?
to. There you are.
Hello.
Okay.
The problem.
I muted you when you got your phone call, so
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay. It's okay.
But you
No,
ready?
this is
Go ahead.
no. I was suggesting that we must do that very slowly in time, because you may destroy everything before the change, and then you will lose the opportunity to really try to manufacture in the United States.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think that we need to manufacture everything here or anything at all. We need to create associations or relationships to produce all the chains in the right way. Use the better things of each country. But if you want to make everything yourself, you are screwed. It's like like a town in the medieval times, trying to do everything and not buying anything to the next town. It has no sense. Everything will cost a lot more. We are cutting funds to universities. We are losing the technology race, doing that in medicine, in robotics, in everything. It's a mistake. Everything is a mistake. Try to stop funding the investigation in medicine, in physics. I don't know. We will lose the talent also. Other countries will lure the scientists to go there because they will have the money to continue with their investigations. So we are losing. We are leaking for everywhere. We are losing position in the world doing this a lot, and this is something that cannot be restate. You cannot recover from that. You lose your scientists and your technology companies. They will try to move away from this situation to survive, just to survive. So it's a bad idea to do this shock therapy to change things. You need to do it in a very smooth and very planned way. It means more than 4 years, and the government don't want to wait 4 years. They don't want to plan ahead of 4 years. So
Well, I had kind of an interesting revelation earlier this week. In about July of last year, I cracked the root on a molar, and the tooth had to be extracted. It could not be repaired. And so during the course of last year, I had to fight off an infection, and then I had to fight off the reaction to the antibiotics because I had a reaction to that. Eventually, I had to have a bone implant, and that had to heal, and then they had to go in and put in an implant, and then that had to heal. Well, I went in earlier this week, finally, to get to the last phase of this. And they didn't use the traditional thing that I was used to of taking an impression with agar and so it was all digital.
scanner.
I had a camera, and they did a 3D scan, and that was sent off to, I don't know where, that's going to manufacture the crown that fits the threads for the implant, and it will come in, and they'll just simply thread it in. The idea of having the manufacturing based on 1950s technology is gone. They don't have the molds, they don't have the trays, nothing. You couldn't go back to that if you wanted to. And I think our economy is kind of like that in other regards. We can't go back. It's not going to happen.
So is your implant done?
It was kind of funny, Art. In December, they threaded the implant into my jaw, and the dentist has a torque wrench sticking into this metal thing, and he's torquing it, and he's telling me, yeah, I'm torquing it to so many Newton centimeters. And I had to comment to him and his assistant, the torques that I employed for sealing confined spaces were like 2,000 foot-pounds per bolt. And they said, "Oh no, we don't use anything like that." Newton centimeters.
Hold on while we get 4 people to hold your head still.
Yep.
The old way.
I tried to explain to the dental hygienist how much that was, and I said, "You feature a wrench this long with a car hanging off of it." Uh,
Yeah.
So is it done?
Everything other than them manufacturing the crown based on this 3D imaging. Yeah, everything's done.
So when that's complete, they will just screw it into your jaw, screw it into the stub that's sitting there.
Yeah.
With Norton centimeter foot pounds.
I don't know that they have to do that. That was what was required to seat it properly into the bone. But the technology of manufacturing that, I looked at it. It's a beautiful small structure. Maybe 8 millimeters tall, conically shaped. It looked like what you have on seamless tubular products for the oil well. The threads are tapered and conical, and the very beginning of it has a self-tapping, and then on the top, it is internally threaded with some sort of standard thread. And for the period of time that it has been there and healing, they have a male like bolt threaded into it so that all of that is covered. And so the other day when he was doing the 3D scanning, he unscrewed that male bolt, put in another thing so that they could reference it, and so that they got the right scale with the 3D scanning. And he didn't need to torque that out or torque it back in. It was just a finger type thing. Now, I haven't reached in there and tried to thread out on my own. It's like do-it-yourself dentistry has never been one of my highlights. My do-it-yourself dentistry is kind of confined to taking stitches out, and that's about it.
So when do you get the final install?
The same day I go in for carotid artery surgery.
I had this tooth looked at, when it was split apart and whatever, and they did an X-ray and it was all digital. It wasn't even they didn't put radiation things on. They didn't throw a lead vest on me or anything. It was just click, click, you're done. It's all real low powered stuff now. It's like it was amazing how how much that's changed because I hate going to the dentist. The dentist was, just a thing to avoid because it was not fun. And now it was kind of like, oh, yeah, it wasn't fun, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought it would be. So, um, I
one of
teased,
one of the jobs that I had when I was working was for nuclear gauging, X-ray gauging, and medical imagery. I had to go through and survey how well the beams were columnated and make certain there wasn't leakage and anything like that. And the step from analog silver photography, if you will, to digital the potential energies drop by 1,000-fold at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Well, I just remember, sitting in this when I was a kid, they would take you back to a room. That was the X-ray machine. They had these big lead things around the thing, and then they would throw a lead apron on top of you, and the tech had a lead apron on top of her, and there'd
and
be
would
these
leave the
plates,
room.
and there
Yeah.
there were these
Yes.
plates sitting right next to your cheek. And when I had it done, you know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, it was not, I think they put something right next to my cheek, but it was nothing. And it was right there in the middle, right out in the open, and all the chairs in his little waiting area had an X-ray machine right there with them. I'm like, this is so cool. And then you could see it right up on the screen. It
Yeah.
happened almost instantly. It was click, there's your tooth. That's the problem. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of my customers was a dentist down in uh, Florence. And all the time they were getting sample equipment. Hey, you ought to buy this and use it at your practice. And so they were getting little tiny USB cameras so that you could look at the backside of a molar and that sort of thing. And they'd get a sample to try for a month. And it was a $2,000 camera that really had $100 worth of stuff in it. And he'd let me borrow it. I brought home a lot of that stuff. I've got all sorts of pictures of the inside of my mouth. And yeah, they had one of the things that replaced the film that you bit down on
Yeah.
Yeah, the
when you
bite
were a kid.
wings.
Yeah, with a USB bite wing.
Mm,
And that thing was sensitive enough that it worked in sunlight. I stuck it in my mouth, went out in the front yard and turned sideways to the sun and was able to get an x-ray.
neat.
And it was an x-ray. It was not visible light.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't even
The
remember
energy
biting down
needed
on
was
anything.
nothing. You never did the bite wing?
I
Oh, those things always hurt.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I was a kid, yeah, but this last time I went to the dentist, I don't remember doing that. I don't remember biting on anything. I think they just stuck a camera in there and took some pictures.
Yeah. They've got both.
Yeah.
The
It
dentist I had, their provider was Henry Schein, I think, which is pretty much all the dentistry around here. And yeah, they'd get one or two things a month, and he'd give me a call. Here, use this. Tell me if it's any good. Okay.
it it was not when I went, it was not the experience I had when I was a kid. And I'm like, wow, okay, you're still poking me with the stupid stick poker thing, but nothing hurt. It was like nothing. It's a
Truly
whole lot.
painless. Truly
Eh,
painless.
I would
Hmm.
I would give it like maybe 90% painless kind of deal. It certainly was not the experience that I had when I was a kid, where just everything about having to hold your mouth open the whole entire time while they're doing stuff and all that. Anyway, I kind of teased a little bit about what I've been doing this week, so Vicente kind of already knows, and stuff isn't working. There it goes. So that little robot has a
What little robot?
oh, you didn't see my little robot when I switched cameras? There
All I
was
see is a black screen.
Do you see a
Now we see a road going off into the distance.
Okay. So
I
there's
thought it was half the St. Louis Arch.
there's
Oh,
there's a little robot. Um, I'll get a picture of it. That has an ESP32 camera and then an ESP 32 to control the robot. And in theory, the two things are supposed to talk to each other and make the robot move. The camera is doing all the processing on board. There's no whatever. And I was showing Vicente. Vicente has been messing with the same software, and it wasn't really working real well last night. But it's working pretty good. See, there's the little bounding box. So I'm looking at the road and I can hone it in so that it gets rid of all the red. So now we've got a thing, and if we move the robot around, you'll see the that it actually changes focus and stays. So the robot, when I first was playing with it yesterday, I had the camera just strapped to the front and I couldn't get to focus on the road ahead of it. But
what
now the
happens when I
camera's,
drive?
yeah, now the camera's thing. Now I can't get it to talk to the other ESP32, which I had it working. I had it working and now it's just decided that it's not. So I made progress though, sort of. I figured this much of it out. So this is really cool software.
Maybe it's that control motor slide switch.
No, it's not. It's not the control motor slide switch. It's something else. I think I may have messed with my whatchamajigger, the serial thing. So yesterday when I couldn't get it to focus on the road, I threw a ball in front of it and got it to mostly focus on the ball. And I was moving the ball around and it maintained its focus. So that's yesterday where it was looking at the ball. You can see the camera's just strapped to the front of it. And that's today. So the camera is now up and angled down. So this Lego part is 3D printed. It's two parts smushed together to make an angle. But now I got to get it to talk to the other controller. So I don't know how well that one's going to be seen. But you could see, maybe see that it focused. The ball is way back now, where in the first picture the ball was a lot closer. And it maintained the focus. So there you can see the ball was pretty close to the camera. So that's back to the beginning. But that's what I've been playing around with. And this little robot, which I've already kind of done a voice command it with your voice, but this is the M5 stack version of the command it with your voice thing, and I'm not sure that I particularly like it, but it works. And I had to, when I put this down here on the platform when I was first playing with it, and as the motor started going faster and faster, it could hear less and less. So I put it up above the motors, and it seems like it's much, much better. Hello.
Hello.
Forward.
What?
Let's see, it restarted. Forward.
There you go.
Hello. Backward. Speed up. Forward. Up. It has a hard time hearing up. Hello. Right. Now, hopefully you saw this motor
Yeah.
started spinning the other way.
Yep.
Hello. Left. Left. Stop. So when it's after it gets a trigger word, it'll listen for a certain amount of time, so you don't have to say the trigger word over and over again, but it times out after like 4 or 5 seconds, and you have to, and the trigger word is hello, and you can change it, but it needs a special piece of software that only runs on Windows and is in complete Chinese. So I am probably,
Kentuckian.
yep. So
Kentuckian.
I'm probably not going to be changing that anytime soon. What's interesting though is there's actually no code. The code's running on the microcontroller, obviously, but you can set the device. So when I say forward, it runs a subroutine on the microcontroller. So there's no actual thing listening. You can look individually to see what words have been said, but there's no in the code there's nothing that's looking to see what has been said. As soon as it hears forward, it triggers the subroutine to go forward. As soon as it hears backward, it triggers the subroutine to go backward. There's no if statements, there's no or statements, there's no and statements. It's just it hears forward, it goes forward. It hears backward, it goes backward. So in at least in theory, it should be a lot faster to do. So that's a pretty neat little toy. And what else did I get from M5 Stack? Oh, I got more NeoPixel. I got their NeoPixel cube from M5 Stack. That's they're stackable cubes, and I didn't really mess with those, but they're pretty much the same as the other microcontroller that I got with the 8 LEDs, eight by eight matrix LEDs. So, and if anybody's ever seen those from last week, and I ordered yesterday my last China order for a while. I ordered the M5 Stack PLC device.
You know what I think? There will be companies that will receive the packages under 800 grams, you know, open the packages, you take all the items inside the package and send them by USPS in USA, you know?
I
It
think
will cost a little bit more, but not so much.
I think I think they already do some of that, but I don't
They do
know.
that in China. They consolidate in China
Yeah,
and send the full package to you here with all the items inside the package. But now they need to change that and put a lot of packages inside a 800 grams
What
big
happened?
thing. So they need to distribute the tariff in all the envelopes that are inside all the bags inside the package and send them here in the United States. They need
yeah.
a warehouse to do that, but they will do that in a couple of months. They can install this operation, and it will be a good business to
An
to continue.
intermediate warehouse wholesaler.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But somewhere along the lines it still has to clear customs.
Yeah. But based on what you got were showing before, if you have a big box that has $799.99 worth of stuff in it, it's cheaper to
Yeah.
do that than it is to have 799 packages with $1 a piece in them.
Hmm, of
They
course.
they will they will have inventory here. They already have, but they move more stuff in big packages
Yeah.
and
Well, you can
deliver from here.
you can buy M5 stack stuff from Mauser and DigiKey, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's kind of interesting though. Mauser, there's a few things that are listed that don't have a tariff attached to them, and there's some stuff that's listed that do have a tariff attached to them. And DigiKey, everything from M5 has a tariff attached to it. So if you're trying to get around the tariffs, it does seem like you're going to be ordering from multiple places to do that.
Yeah.
I think that Mauser is not applying the tariffs to the inventory they already have. You know, this will be changed in the future when they release
Some
or deliver everything.
I think they're looking at there's certain things that uh I don't know how it's worded. It's everything has like a numeric value or something, and certain items fall into a category that either has a very low tariff rate or no tariff rate at all. And if you look at some of the stuff that Mauser has listed with no tariff, it probably should have a tariff because there's a microcontroller, but it doesn't because it's a helicopter or something weird, and they're
Well,
classifying it as something other than what it is.
but if they have 200 boards already in stock, they won't apply the tariff to those boards. You know, this will change when they deplete all the inventory or change for new boards. They will apply the tariff. That's the right thing to do, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, I was looking at some of the stuff that Mauser had, and it seems to me like at least when I was looking, it seemed like at one point the tariffs seemed relatively cheap and reasonable, and then I looked again and the tariff went it didn't go outrageously up, but it went up, and I'm like, huh, that's kind of interesting. And that stuff is already in inventory, so they're doing something funky. Um, but it does seem like Mauser is classifying some of this equipment and some of this stuff as something other than what DigiKey is classifying it as.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
And it's just kind of interesting. It I don't know. I I would have thought that once it was here and it already cleared customs that there wouldn't have put a tariff on it, but Mauser apparently is sticking tariffs on some of the stuff. So I don't know. Um, I did find some stuff on from uh eBay that doesn't look like it's going to have a tariff on it. And I'm not real sure how eBay is going to get around.
Yeah. It would depend on whether it's domestic or foreign, whether applied. Ah,
Yep.
What you got?
That
I made this connector to change the angle of the camera to look
Mhm.
a little bit down for line following. You see?
yes.
But I need to move it a little bit more forward down because still the line is a little weird to see. Let me show how this is seeing the line. You see
yep.
you see the robot looking at the
Yeah.
line, and
Yep.
in the computer you see the image of the camera. The camera actually send a gray shades of gray image to make it faster instead of color. I am sending grayscale to the computer, and I doing the. Let me share this. I'm doing the image processing in the computer using processing. It's a program that is very like the Arduino, but it's in the computer. So I receive the full frame of the camera and define a threshold in the gray scale image. The threshold change the image to black and white, and then I try to figure out the center of the line to follow the line. The idea is that move the program that is in the computer, move the program to the ESP32 in the robot, and just follow the line instead of sending the images to the computer. But first, I will develop the application in the computer. Is easier before move the algorithm to the ESP32 to the camera. So I need to change a little bit more the angle. And finally, the last week I was complaining about the connector that doesn't work for programming, but thanks to Leroy, we find out that the connector can be used for programming the DSP32 cam, but you need to have the robot on. The
Okay.
switch must be on to work. So that's it.
So we are we're trying to accomplish the same thing with two different methods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am in a little bit more low level stuff,
Mm-hmm.
sending programming the camera to just take grayscale images. And I lose a lot of time moving the image to the computer. When I do everything in the ESP32, the frames will be a lot faster, you know.
Yeah.
Now the frames are 4 frames per second. But if I move the algorithm to the robot, will be like 25 or so frames per second. Will be faster taking decisions to move in the line.
Was it?
I
Yeah.
have in the computer, I have here the number of frames per second. Actually
Okay.
are 4.14 or something. See?
Looks like it drops every now and then to 2, though.
So but I am doing a lot of stuff at the same time. I'm working in another project here. Yeah, you see.
Yep. Well, this is a neat project.
Yeah, I'm trying to synchronize all these boards in the range of microseconds to use them in a location software that I want to use them to locate stuff. And actually, they are synchronized close to in a window of 23. I don't know, you see 20.
Yep.
All of them, these are the pulses of the master, and this is the pulses of the slave. And all of them are synchronized close to 20 microseconds. So now I can use them to measure the propagation of the sound in the air and measure distance with very high precision. This 23 microseconds means 3 millimeters of error. 3 millimeters, and this is in a range of 100 meters. Is nothing, you know. 3 millimeters is nothing. Will be a very precise system.
Yeah. Do you find that the speed of sound varies according to temperature and humidity?
No, I need to compensate with temperature. Humidity, you can do it, but it's not so important than the temperature.
But
But I do it.
It is a smaller effect than
Yeah.
temperature, but it, as I understood it, it did have a difference in the
Yeah.
speed.
I will check that at the end of the project because it's just an equation, and maybe I need a thermometer and hygrometer
Yeah.
added to the system. But it's okay.
Well, what you're doing is very impressive, and you're going to hit 99% before you even have to worry about the other part.
Yeah. And this fluctuation, you see 20 microseconds, are very random in the range, you know. So you can use average to just compact the error under a millimeter, you know. You can just squeeze the samples because they are all distributed in time in a very narrow space, and they almost move in both directions in the same amount. So you can average all the measurements to have a better resolution.
Well, it's been 50 years at least before we're trying to do direction finding by difference in arrival times. But I'm thinking that the direction accuracy was based on the distance between the two detectors as well.
I did that. I start my project doing that with 2 microphones in a in a polyurethane head, in the ears, and try to identify where is the source of the sound, where it comes from.
Yeah.
But this algorithm is use like LoRaN location system of the planes, use parabolic coordinates, and the error is very high. You can have a direction, but it's hard to find the exact point where it happens, the position. And you need three beacons to narrow the area where the mobile is. You want to know where a plane is in the sky.
Yeah.
You need three beacons to produce the true intersections, and it's a very rough measurement. Just for navigation.
I don't remember anything from 50 years ago other than I was immersed in it at that point. But
the system was called LoRaN,
Yeah.
but then the GPS throw away everything because the GPS gives you plus minus 1 meter. So LoRaN was in hundreds, maybe sometimes kilometers of error.
Yeah.
But now you have also the very high resolution GPS. I don't know the term is ADK or ASK. They use a ground reference to correct.
Mhm.
They use that for landing planes with centimeters or inches of resolution, with very, very precise location. So
That's just the civilian. we don't know what military has capabilities have.
yeah. They have a higher resolution and faster update of the data, to move mainly planes or missiles or whatever.
When GPS was first introduced and its resolution was on, on a bad day about 9 foot, that was even better, way better than what Lowrance was on a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lowrance was a neat system, but it never was very accurate.
Yeah.
It,
Well,
but
my military accuracy was with an 81 millimeter mortar. It's like drop 500 at 1,000.
yeah, don't need to be real accurate as long as it's going that direction.
No, if you have a 150-foot blast radius, you don't have to be real terribly accurate.
Yeah, it's going that direction. We're good. Yeah. Well, we had on the submarine, um, the first captain that was there, he bought uh, a civilian GPS unit because for some reason the Navy didn't want to put a GPS on the submarine, and he wasn't 100% convinced that it was any better, but he wanted to play with it. And because we were an R&D boat, I guess he was able to finagle his way around and get one put on. But the more we played with it, the more we were like, wow, this thing's really, really good. It might still be off a bit, but it's way better than anything else we've got. And that was back in the day, but when it was very, very early on and it was a civilian model, it could not have been as accurate as it should have been. But I
Well,
remember.
I was looking around through my old bags of machines and I discovered something I had forgotten I had owned, and that was an external GPS for a laptop.
Yep.
I've still got one of those laying around someplace.
Yeah,
I've got several of them somewhere.
yeah,
Plus GPS modules in one of these buckets. Yep. Like
yeah.
that. A puck.
So I bought Julie a GPS. I think it was a Garland or whatever, and I was looking at it, and in the mapping area were all of the voice responses and commands. So I duplicated one of the voice responses and said, I don't know where the hell we are, and substituted that. So, and I just left it and waited for that to show up at some time.
That had to have been a what was it? It started with an N. The brand.
A Garland?
Garmin.
Garmin. Was it a Garmin that I thought I had the name and now it's gone. There was another company and I thought they were the ones that would let you change the voice prompts.
Well, I don't think they invited me to do that.
Oh, the other company I'm thinking of, they sold Simpsons packs and they sold all kinds of different voices you could get. Yoda talking backwards. Destination have arrived you.
Oh,
Yeah. Left turn you must do.
you follow my directions to go deep water.
Uh, I've got, let's see, Garmin made it was a sport for boat GPS. That's one of the coolest GPS, but it has to be at this point 25 years old. It was a black and white display and it was a LCD. There were no maps. It was
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
meant to be
I
out on the
remember.
water.
I think I
That
had one. Yeah.
it was one of the early ones and it had a serial port on it so you could plug it in and look at all kinds of stuff that it was getting. That thing actually still works. I had it plugged in the other day and I was like, wow, I looked, it was within about 9 foot of where I was at. So,
Now they have this technology in a watch, very
mhm,
tiny,
Yeah.
very precise, very with very
yeah,
good reception.
yeah. But all right. Well, it's 7 o'clock, guys.
Time to
Um,
eat
yeah, I'm feeling like it too. So we're virtual again next week.
next
So
week. Okay.
I hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit more and we'll have some updates. So we'll see
Okay.
everybody next week, I hope.
Well,
Bye.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Good
Steve,
night.
night. Have a
Steve,
good week.
Yeah,
give me a call tomorrow. Talk about the car if you're still interested.
I am. Okay, will do.
All right, thanks.
All
Mhm.
right.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye bye. Bye.